I'm joined now by our Thursday panel of political commentators. Geoff Turner is a Liberal commentator, Tim Power is a Conservative commentator, and Danielle Dalzell is an NDP commentator. Good to see you all. Thanks for making time to speak with me today. Geoff, let's start with the government's efforts to bring in more Ukrainian refugees. We heard the Minister of Immigration talking about the challenges of trying to get more Ukrainian refugees and Afghan refugees, for that matter, to Canada. Should this be that complicated, or has Canada overpromised here and underdelivered?
Well, definitely it's an enormous task when you, as you appropriately did, Peter, consider that we have a significant commitment for both Afghans and for Ukrainians now barely 8 months apart from each other. So it certainly is a big processing job. It certainly is a big logistical job. And in finding where those people are and then where they're going is always a challenge. I think the government's been trying to make sure they're kept up to date on this and that they're providing the resources to Citizenship and Immigration Canada to process those applications. But I think, when it comes to refugees who are fleeing war zones and bad situations, it's never fast enough. So I think the government's certainly trying to make it happen as quickly as possible. But Canada is certainly always trying to be the nation out there that is offering safe haven to people fleeing from war zones, and I think that's a commitment that you don't always see in other peer countries. So we make some big promises, and we definitely want to try to live up to them.
Tim, how do you see this? How's the government handling this refugee crisis?
I think the intentions are noble and the goals are right. The problem is processing, as Geoff alluded to. Even before the war in the Ukraine, they were having trouble getting Afghan people qualified and through and screened accordingly. I'm sure they're trying their best, and I don't know precisely what the problem is. Is it a security screening process? Is it a human resources process issue? Are there other settlement issues that are not being properly tended to? I think we need to push hard to get this right, not compromising security, but I think we really need to look at why things are getting stuck there and find a way to get them unstuck.
Danielle, the minister seems to suggest that, look, part of it is the security requirements that Canada doesn't seem to be prepared to relax, and part of it is trying to figure out exactly where the refugees are moving to. I think it's some 60,000 have applied to Canada for refugee status here, but they make an application somewhere and then move to a safer area, so it's hard to sort of pinpoint where they are. Are those excuses acceptable, or does Canada need to get this right?
Well, I don't know that they're excuses. I mean, I'm sure there's valid delays, but really there's a great deal of alignment from across parties and a real push to move this quicker. These people need help, particularly people from Ukraine, right away. The NDP has been calling for that, to move quicker and provide them with help when they arrive. It is of the highest urgency possible. So I think a good deal of alignment and just a real call for the government to move as quick as they possibly can to help these people.
Geoff, let me shift the conversation here to carbon taxes. The federal carbon tax price rises April 1st, tomorrow, to $50 a ton from $40. It will jump to $170 a ton by 2030. The Liberals' new climate plan this week includes a proposal to enshrine the pricing in either legislation or in contracts with companies. And I guess I'm wondering whether you think this happens in the next 3 years, now that we have this Liberal NDP agreement. And what will it do to the promises, do you think, from some Conservatives to get rid of the tax if they form government?
Yeah, it's interesting. And just put some of those numbers in context for your viewers, Peter. Of course, when we're talking about a liter of gasoline, so today it's 8.9 cents. Tomorrow it's going to be 11 cents. And in 2030, at that $170 a ton, it'll be 35 cents. So, we've seen gas swing up $1 in the last year. We've seen gas swing up 30, 40, 50 cents in just the last few weeks. So, I think the cost of living is definitely a top concern for people. People are feeling their budgets squeezed, but I think those are relatively small amounts compared to what the market and what the international situation has been impacting on us. But either way, in terms of the certainty part of this, I had heard a few weeks ago that there might be some movement around the idea of trying to preserve or to de-risk investment in clean tech and investments that rely on those carbon credits and those high carbon tax rates to be able to make their investments work from a credit perspective. I didn't think the government would bite on that, but they seem to have just indicated in the emissions reduction plan that they will. Governments cannot bind the hands of successor governments legally, but they can certainly make it very expensive and painful for them to get out of something.
Okay.
And that's what's the government seems to be trying to do here.
Tim, how should this issue of certainty and predictability affect the debate within the Conservative Party leadership race about the future of a federal carbon tax? Some candidates want to gas it all together, pardon the pun. Others have sort of tweaked plans and so on. But if the government moves ahead with this plan to sort of lock in companies at a price, how does a future government undo that?
Well, I don't think that'll change the trajectory of the Conservative leadership race, Peter. I've never known a debate in the Conservative leadership race or any party's leadership base to be hemmed in by reality. So let's not worry about that right there now. Look, I think this is probably going to be a bit like the GST and the Liberals and their dance with the GST. Mr. Chrétien said he was going to take it down. He didn't, and it stayed because it became a revenue-producing tool for the government, and governments love revenue-producing tools. So Conservatives will score great points rallying against it. Will they change it over time? I doubt it. As it relates to the immediate race, I think you're going to hear more over the next week leading into the budget about immediate inflationary pressure removal tools that the government should be using, whether that be tax holidays or other tax relief measures beyond just the carbon tax. But they will not let it go for the rhetorical purposes, but in reality, I suspect it will stay.
Okay. Danielle, what do you think of this tactic by the Liberals to bring some predictability and some sort of permanence, if you will, to a carbon tax?
Well, I think it's good and it's needed. I mean, we're seeing huge rises in fuel costs, of course, due to the situation in the Ukraine. But to me, that just proves that we need to hasten the transition to sustainable energy sources and seize on the opportunities there. I don't think it's an argument for the carbon tax to go anywhere, but we do need, as Jagmeet Singh has been saying, to be helping with people with cost of living all around. So I don't see it as holding water. I understand why they're seizing this moment, but I think this is an important tool to facilitate that transition because climate change isn't going anywhere and we have to act.
All right, Geoff. Let's Danielle touched on sort of Tim on the upcoming budget. Let's go there. More sparring in the House today over the cost of living and the upcoming budget. No matter what's in it, it's going to get a pass thanks to the deal with the NDP. Now, notwithstanding the free hand the government will have here, what does it have to get right in this budget?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of different moving pieces. The cost of living is one of those, and the government has chosen to attack that problem through things like childcare and specific targeted measures at populations like seniors and others. Certainly in terms of that deal with the NDP, things like pharmacare, dental care are also certainly big assistance out in the future for people who rely on those types of services. I think that's one area, and so we'll have to see that. Housing is another big one. I think people are really expecting to see the housing agenda come out here. That includes a mix of affordable housing, but also measures in the private housing market that can cool some of the over speculation or overheating that we're seeing in key markets. I think that's a big one. I also go back to the minister in her fall economic update very clearly said that this budget would contain a sustainable economic growth plan for the next few years. And I think that's a very important piece to make sure that we have in front of us, especially as we talk about the coming out of the pandemic and the significant deficits and costs that we've incurred as a result of that, and as we incur more costs on climate action, that sustainable economic action plan is what will fill in the other side.
Let me jump to Danielle here because of the demands the NDP have made of the government as part of this deal and what you expect to see in the budget. What does it need to get right, the government in this budget, Danielle, because of what the NDP's asked for?
I mean, first and foremost, in the confidence and supply agreement they signed last week is dental care. I think that's the number one thing the NDP are looking to see, followed by pharmacare and investments in a just climate transition to support people, workers, and communities. So they're really pushing for those pieces. They are outlined in the agreement. And as the agreement states, the Liberals have to move forward on some of these pieces for that to be maintained moving forward. So they're hoping to see that.
All right, let's finish with you, Tim, and what do you think the government needs to get right here?
Well, Pierre, I don't want to go all Rachel Harder and start quoting from the Oxford English Dictionary, but I will. Is the word no the simplest word in the English language, perhaps, and the hardest word for the Prime Minister going to appear anywhere? I think there's a lot of laudable programs, both from the deal with the NDP and things like 2% GDP increase for the military that are there, and perhaps over time all need to be funded. And I think we'll see some of those big ticket items get some money. But I'm interested in seeing what's not going to be funded, the reasons why, and then what taxation powers the government might be looking to extend and increase to pay for some of the current programs that they bring in, because even the revenue from oil and gas that they're trying to wean us off is not going to be enough to pay for a lot of these laudable programs over time.
All right, we get the answers a week from today. Thank you all for your time tonight. Good to see you all again, and take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.